A very good morning, class. In today's class, we are gonna see the Unit 3 supplementary lesson, the three questions. The supplementary lesson from Unit 3, the three questions. Okay. By the end of this video lecture, you will be able to have a clear outline of what the author is trying to say. You will be able to understand the theme of the lesson, and you will be able to relate to the connection between each lines, and you will also get to know the meanings of hard words or difficult words used in the lesson, the three questions. Okay, now let's get into the lesson, section 1. Okay, I'll I'll read the lesson here and there and I'll explain it to you. I'll explain the story. So the lesson setting starts by here there is a king who has three unsolved questions in his mind. So he has this three questions that has been disturbing him so much. So let's know what the three questions are. Okay. There was a king who had three questions in his mind that if he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to whom to avoid, and above all, if he always knew what was the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything he might undertake. So, here are the three questions. So, the first question is, what is the right time to do anything? So, what is the right time to start or begin anything? The second question is, who to listen and whom to avoid. So, who is the person that you should listen to? Whom should you pay attention to? Okay, and the third question is, and what to do? Like, what is the important thing to do? What is the most important thing to do? First question is, what time? Second question is, whom to listen? And the third question is, what is the important thing to do? What to do? So these are the three questions that was disturbing the king so much. So one day the king decided to proclaim. Proclaim is basically announce. So he decided to announce this to the people, saying that if anyone gives me a satisfying answer or a reply and solves these three questions for me, you will be rewarded. So the king announces to the people that the person who gives a good answer, a satisfying answer, will be rewarded. And so was the three questions announced, and a lot of educated people, a lot of scholarly people came out with different types of answers. There were a lot of people with different types of questions. Okay, so here is about the part in which the king is announcing. Uh, So this is the two paragraph that speaks about the two paragraph speaks about how the king has the doubt and how he decides to announce it. Okay, and then what happened, a lot of people came with different type of answers. So when the king said what is the right time to do, so what whom to deal with, so what is the important thing to do, so the people started saying that you have to follow a strict schedule. Even if you do so, you will have unfortunate events that are happening, so only a magician can answer you for this question. And like people came up with very crazy answers, a lot of crazy answers. So they told the king to have a proper schedule, a proper, planned work, a proper timing, and still that the king might face challenges. And so people, the scholarly people, came up with different answers, but none of the answers was satisfied for the king. None of the answers was satisfying enough for the king. So and then what happened, the king rewarded no one, and the king decided to go to the hermit. So hermit is a person who's isolated and he's very intelligent. So he's almost alone, and okay, so he's basically a very wise person. A hermit is a wise person who lives in solitude, you could say. So solitude is living alone. So the king decides to go to the hermit. So and then what happened? Hermit is someone who meets or comes across casualties, but he's not someone who can like approach a king and all. So king decides to go on a disguise. So the king disguises himself as a common folk, and then he plans on meeting the hermit. So and then he takes the voyage on to meet the hermit. So and then he goes to the place where the hermit lives. And then what happened, the king says all the soldiers and the horse, he gets down from the horse a little far away from the hermit's house, and he also tells the soldiers and all to get down far away from where the hermit stays. And then he goes to visit the hermit. And then what happens? He sees the hermit. The hermit was digging a hole in the ground. So he was digging something in the ground. And then the king went and he greeted and he asked him. He greeted. He spoke kindly, and then he said the hermit that he has come here seeking for a help. And then the hermit asked what, and then the king says that he has three unsolved questions in his mind. So there are three questions that has been disturbing him, and he's been looking for the answer. So and then what happened? The hermit asked what the questions were, and then the king started saying those. Okay, and then the king started saying the three questions. So what were the three questions? What was the right time to do anything? Who is the important person? And then what is the important thing to do? And then the king told the three questions, and the hermit didn't give any response. So he was just calm, digging the hole. He didn't respond. And then the king was kind of astonished, and then he just repeated himself again. Being humble, the king repeated himself again, uh, saying that just repeating the questions. And again, after repeating all the three questions, and still the hermit did not give any response. So the king got a little bit shocked, and then the king said, "If you want me to help." Um, so the king says, King went up to him and said, "I come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer three questions. How can I learn to do the right?" So he just says the questions, and then um, what the hermit gives a very sarcastic reply. He says, "You're tired. You are tired, king." So this is the reply he gives to the king. So okay, I'm sorry. He doesn't know that he is the king. He says, "You are tired," and then the king says, "Okay, fine. Hand over me the spade. I'll dig the thing for you." And then the hermit gives the spade to the king, and the king starts digging. So he says thanks, and he sits for a while. And then he starts digging, and again the king asks, and he doesn't give a reply. And then after a while the hermit says, "You must be tired now." And then he gets the spade and he starts digging again. So this kind of happens, and the hermit isn't giving any response. And all of a sudden, okay, so this is till which you have in your unit 1, I mean sorry, section 1. So in the section 2, okay, so while the king and the hermit are just digging hole, there's the sudden a person who's just very much wounded and running out of the wood. He's bleeding too. So he has a beard, and he's completely wounded, and he's coming out of the wood. So wood is basically the forest. And then he's moaning feebly. So moaning softly, moaning is crying feebly, softly. Okay, so he's been attacked in his stomach, and blood has been running out. So this person comes, and what the king and the hermit does, they immediately take the wounded person inside their house. They apply bandage and all. So by this, the a whole day passes by, and then they take the person inside, and by digging itself, almost evening passes by, because the hermit doesn't reply, and the thing keeps prolonging, and the whole day passes by. And then the wounded man comes. So the king and the hermit lifts him up, and they take him inside to the bed. They apply all the medicines, and they put bandage and all. The blood doesn't seem to stop. So the king, he keeps wetting the bandage in warm water, and he keeps covering it in the blood till it stops. And then the wounded guy, the blood at one point it stops, and he falls asleep. And then the king is very tired from all the digging process, and he also falls asleep. So and then what happens the next day? Again, the next day the king is waking up, and then he forgets who this wounded man is. He just is getting up, and he sees this beard man, and he kind of doesn't remember who this person is. And the bearded guy, uh, out of shock, he recognizes the king, and he kind of cries, and he says, he apologizes to the king, and he says he is an ambush. Ambush is basically a surprise attack, someone who's waiting to attack someone, and all this camouflage and all, and disguise, who's covered, who's hidden, who's trying to attack. So the person, the bearded person, he opens up saying to the king that he was supposed to kill the king. He came to know that the king has gone to the hermit to seek for three answers. So that he came to the wood and he was hiding there, and then, as you didn't return the evening, as I was waiting for a long time, I came out from the hiding place, and the soldiers who the king left behind, they found the ambush, and they attacked him very badly, and then he came running to save his life, and the king and the hermit found him, and then they fixed the wounds and all for the person. Or if not, if the wounds were not fixed, he would have lost a lot of blood and could have also died. So you saved my life. I was about to attack you and kill you yesterday, and you you aided me, and you saved my life. So the wounded person, he replies, and the king is very shocked, and he is also happy that they have made peace with the person. So the enmity of the person has been come to an end. So the king is also happy about it, and then he decides to leave. So the king is kind of now exhausted, and he decides to give one final shot. So he goes to the hermit. So the hermit is planting some seeds in the holes they dug last day. So they are planting seeds there. The hermit is planting seeds there. So the king, he says, like, he's leaving, and he says, I'm asking you one last time, can you give me the answer for these three questions? What is the right time to do anything? Who is the most important person to consult or to deal with? And what is the most important thing to do? So he asks the hermit, so can you please give me answer for this for the one last time I'm asking you? So then the hermit gives a very shocking response. The hermit says, King, my dear king, you have already got your answer. He says, you have already been answered. So the king is very much shocked. So, and the king is now like, how have I got answered? What do you mean? He doesn't understand what is going on. He's like, who answered? Like, I didn't get an answer. So what do you mean? And then the hermit says, King, so remember the three questions and the incident, what happened to the bearded man, okay? So the answer is something related to it. So the hermit says, King, what is the right time? So the right time was nothing but the present. We only have power with the present. We cannot change the past, neither can we know the future. We only have been gifted with the present, in which we can work or do anything to change the future, or to forget the past, or to forgive or forget the past. So the power has been given for us to only work on the present, which is the now. So the hermit says the most important time is now. So you can only work on the present you have. And then who is the most important person to deal with? So the hermit says the most important person to deal with is someone who you are dealing with, someone who is with you, or the person who you are dealing with. So if you are with a friend, the important person is your friend at that moment. So when you are with your friend, when he is at a need, you have to help your friend. So the important person to deal with at that time, according to that situation, becomes your friend. And then, what is the most important thing to do? So the most important thing to do is good. So any time, or whatever the situation is, do good. So the most important thing to do is always good. So the hermit says, look, so king, see, last night, so there was this wounded man. So you ask the question, what is the right time to do something? So if you would have left the place early without getting an answer, while returning, the ambush might have destroyed you. He would have assassinated, assailed the king, I mean killed the king. So the king stayed, and he waited for the answer, and the situation happened to be favorable to the king, and nothing went wrong. So the present is the most important time, and the way the king helped the person. So the king helped spontaneously to the person, right? He put bandage and all, and he stopped bleeding, and the wounded person stopped bleeding. So if in case the king would not have helped, the person might have died, and the enmity might have kept going, so they wouldn't have made peace. So the right moment is the current time. And then who is the most important person? So who is the most important person was the one you're dealing with. So again, the wounded person that time. So if the king would have not dealt with the person, or he would have just be seeking for the answer, like he wouldn't have cared less for anything, cared more for anything, the person might have died, and they would not have made peace with the person. And then what is the right thing to do? So the king, he came looking for answer, but something unfortunate happened, and then he started doing good to the person. He started to do aid for the person, so he started doing good. So any time doing good is the right and the most important thing to do. So this is the answer the hermit says. And the hermit says that we are all, the men are sent into our life only for this purpose, to do good. So, this is the most brilliant answer the hermit gave the king, and of course, the king must be satisfied. So, okay, now let's see the hard words alone. So, proclaimed is to announce, absorbed is to take in, and the hermit is someone who lives in isolation and who's very wise. And affairs are events. Mourning is crying. Unfasten, removed, like unfasten your seat belts. So unfasten is remove. Revived is regain. So the wounded person, after doing the aid, he was revived, so he got back to life. And then intensely is closely, strongly. Swore is promise, like I swore, we say, right? So swore is promise. Ambush is sudden attack. Someone and all camouflage and hidden in the woods and all, waiting to attack. So basically, they are called the ambush. Bleed is the flow, and porch is veranda. Porch. Okay, and seized is to stop or snatch. Seized is to take away, or snatch, grab, hold suddenly, or without. I mean, like without the other person's concern is seized. Okay, so and then repented is feeling sorry for something. So this is repentant. So I hope you all understood what the author is trying to say, the theme of the lesson, the connection between each lines, and of course the meanings of the hard words. I hope you understood the lesson. We'll also revise this in the Zoom class. Thank you.